you know, I want to,
Yeah.
I want to have a family and things. And it was a huge moral dilemma. Um, but for all of the reasons, you know, I was just like, I could not go through with it. I knew what was coming. I knew, you know, it was going to lead to a whole bunch of stuff. And so, you know, our relationship was a long distance one at that time. And so I knew I was going to go up to see him for a couple of weeks, like at that time. Basically, I went up for a week or two every month or so. Um, and so I go there, I tell him what's going on, that I want to, you know, I'm going to have an abortion, which he was, you know, supportive of and, you know, agreed with and relieved about. And from there, I was the one supporting him. He wasn't the one supporting me in this whole thing. And
Oh. Huh.
not in a, you know, not in a he needed to be reassured, but he was just not there for me at all. He had panic attacks. He
Mm.
had he was just weak. He was just weak. And I mean, I'm sorry, and it's harsh. And you know, you want to, you know, be understanding and things, but here this is my story, and he was just not there for me at all. Um, he he was just so bad. So I got the abortion. So he was at the hospital with me when I got the abortion. Um, and he was just unsupportive. He could not hide his emotions, which is, you know, that was the way he is. And it's not that I'm defending him. It's just, you know, some people are like that, but that was me. I had already realized, but being, you know, confronted about the fact this is the guy that you fought for. And the thing is that I wasn't even surprised about it, that he was just not emotionally and mentally equipped to help me through this. He just wasn't. And not that it was my own fault for staying with this guy, but it's, you know, this was everything that I had seen about him. Just that was, you know, it amounted to that. And
Yeah,
so it
and I think you also
happened.
have to go. Yeah,
No, no, please go.
no. I was gonna say, I think you also needed to go. I think you needed to go out with a person like this to scratch that itch and understand that that's not the type of person that you need to be with. And often we don't know what we think we know what we need when we actually need the
Yeah,
opposite, or we think we know what we want and we actually need something else entirely.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's that's so true because, you know, it turns out that you want somebody you want to rely on, and you want, I don't know about the traditionally masculine type of man, even though that's what JT is today. Maybe I, you know, overcorrected, but you know, you know, you fantasize about this image of somebody, and you know, and especially I think our generation, you get a lot of these, you know, feminine men in touch with their emotions, which is fantastic, and you want men in touch with their emotions, but you want, whether it's men or women, you want somebody who is solid and you can count on. And it
mhm.
doesn't matter if you're not somebody that somebody can count on, you know, you're not a bad person, because he was not a bad person. He isn't a bad person. Well, the story isn't finished, but he was just not reliable or strong, or, you know, he wasn't anywhere near somebody you could rely upon. And so the result of that is just you
Yeah,
cannot be in a relationship, you know, because a relationship
yeah.
is on both sides. And
And no
so
matter how strong you are, you also need someone to lean on, you know?
exactly,
It has to go both ways at the end of the day.
exactly. And I think, and that's the thing, that I, at that time where I was like, I that experience taught me that I'm not, um, you know, 100% strong and kind of above all, which I thought that I was at that time. I thought that I was, you know, this powerful woman of just, I don't need anyone and things like that. And I did need people. And so thankfully I had people in my life that I could count on and, you know, talk about these things with. Shout out to Kirsty, who's an amazing person, and a couple of other
Yay.
people. Um, but yeah, it's, you know, you also, you know, sometimes you will feel less powerful and you'll need people to rely on. And, you know, and if the people, you know, and you just want to find somebody who you can rely on and is gonna, you know, not pull you out, because that's not, you know, it's not their job to a certain extent, but at least be there for you, which he was not,
Mhm.
to such an extent that somebody at my door, nope. He was not there for me to an extent where I got the abortion, um, and a couple of days later, so you know, it's an operation, and then you've got the hormones and you've got the whole emotional turmoil and everything. It takes a while to get over, um, and for him, a couple of days later, he was basically asking me to leave because he wanted to go spend time with his friend who he had gotten into a physical fight with a couple of months prior, which led to him having like a bloody nose and a bloody like eye. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "Yeah, anytime we bring her up, um, I feel like you get angry." And I was like, "Well, I get angry because I can't believe you forgive somebody who's barely apologized about beating you up under the influence of alcohol and it's done it before and it's probably going to do it again. I don't understand how in your mid 30s you can still be around people like that." And he's like, "Yeah, but I want to spend time with her and like you're here and I'm not sure how to deal with it and I just need to have my space." I was like, "Okay." And that was the end of that. And I was like, "Okay, I mean, obviously," and I've just condensed this huge argument in a couple of minutes for the sake of this podcast. But that's how it led to it of just, okay, well, I mean, he was asking for a break and he was like, this was, you know, late October, early November or something like that. And he was just, yeah, saying, "You're always saying that we need to put our needs in front of others." And I was like, I understand that, but you and I did this together. Like I'm the only one paying for the consequence of our actions, and it's not even my fault. It's just the IUD moved and it wasn't effective anymore. And like you are without any consequence on your body of what happened, and you can't even be there for me for like a week. And this was like 2 days after the abortion, he was telling
Mm.
me this. Which, so was it not even a smack in my face because, as I said, it was completely unsurprising about this guy. When I found out I was pregnant, I knew this was going to lead to an abortion and then a breakup. I just didn't think it was going to happen like within a week of each other. Um, and
Yeah.
that, yeah, that's what led to my most recent breakup. This whole event, and so you could say vulgarly you could say I had an abortion which led to a breakup, but that's not why we broke up. It was the cherry on top of just everything else of him being weak and unreliable and just, yeah, wimp like. And
Yeah. Well, at least it brought out his true colors, or it showed you what he's really like when push comes to shove. I think there's nothing quite like these kind of scares to show you who the person you're with is.
mm,
And I mean, yeah, it's a traumatic and terrible experience, but it's also a challenge that life throws your way, and together you discover whether or not you're strong enough
yeah,
to get through it together or not. And it shows you who the other person really is. And if he can't cope with this, then he won't be able to cope with much bigger things and more stressful situations. And it's ah, at least you got him out of the way.
yeah, I mean, completely. It shows me, it was unsurprising, as I said, but I don't like it. You can get into this whole victim blaming, as in, you know I could have foreseen this and blah blah blah, and maybe, and that's not the
Mm.
point of the conversation. It's just, if I had listened to my instincts and like not pushed myself, maybe I could have avoided that situation. But what came out of it is that he was not able to support me in something that didn't impact him at all.
Yeah.
Finance, everything, like it didn't impact him at all. So yeah, good riddance. And it was, so I left. It was a tough situation in the sense that ooh, it was a tough situation in the sense that I was leaving and with the hormones and everything, and it was an awkward time. And I hadn't told my parents. They know now, but at the time I hadn't told my parents, and it was a complicated situation. But it was the jolt that I needed of I need to own my,
Mhm.
myself. And just because I've got all of these tools to help other people doesn't mean it's innate for me, and I still need to kind of mind myself. Doctors make worse patients type of thing of.
Yeah. No, it's easier to give advice than to take it for yourself.
I mean, today so I've got all of this training as a coach and like therapy training and things like that, but I've got my own therapist to talk things through with, just because
Yeah.
it's, when you're in it and so close up to it, it's difficult to take a step back.
Yeah.
And yeah,
There's
so
you
that
have
was.
your blind spots and there's certain
Yeah.
things that you can't see and that, other people can reflect back to you.
Mm. So
So
yeah, so that was my last breakup.
what a
Mm.
breakup. You've gone through breakups. But I I feel like you just needed to experience this thing to learn a lot for yourself. Not that you have to go through an abortion, God forbid, to learn things about life, but I think you wanted to date a certain type of person. You may have ignored certain red flags along the way, which we all do, and then something so traumatizing happens at the end of it that it's you steer away and there's no other way but to learn from it and not to repeat it again.
Mm.
So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And as you say, it's the whole everything happens for a reason is a bit, it's take it or leave it type of thing. Um, but it was the experience, it for me, it needed to come to that for me to learn that lesson.
hmm
And
yeah.
today I'm thinking, I don't want people to get to that to learn the lesson, which is why, it's so, self-awareness. You want to just think
Self-awareness.
exactly what is it that you need, because at the time with the guy, I knew I wanted
Yeah.
kids, I knew that he didn't want kids, and the whole situation. And if I had been honest with myself earlier, I probably could have avoided it. And as you said, like, you put yourself in the situation where you think you want to date this type of person, and actually he or she is completely wrong for you. They are completely
hmm
wrong for you. And it's a shame to have to get to that situation to
Yeah.
understand.
But I think we, as humans, most of us need to. Like, even if you help someone or you give someone advice, at the end of the day, each person has to learn from themselves and they have to get burnt to really understand it for themselves and in their own life. And yes, there's certain things that you can learn from other people. You can take an example, but sometimes you just need to learn from your own experiences.
Mm,
And I think a lot of times also, like, I was with the wrong people, and and it doesn't matter what others say. You think you know best and you don't want to hear it. It's not the truth that you want to be true. And so you just ignore it, and you have to get to that crash and burn point
mm,
in order to understand that what you're doing is wrong. And as someone who's giving advice, you also don't want to be at fault in the end. It's like, I did this because of you. You told me to break up with them, and I did, and now I regret it. You have to come to that decision for yourself, and you have to learn certain things on your own. And it's just the way of life. And it reminded me a bit, parts of the story reminded me a bit of my last breakup, which I spoke about in the last episode. But like, with that relationship where I was just knew very early on that it wasn't it,
yeah.
and the more it went on, the more I realized that it definitely wasn't it. And I just convinced myself that we don't need that fairy tale love, we don't need the sparks and
Yeah.
fireworks. And so I overcorrected, because yes, on the one hand, Hollywood and fairy tales aren't true, but on the other hand, you don't need to erase that completely. And so I convinced myself to make it work. And when we started dating, I was at my prime. I was so strong and resilient and thick skinned. And he was constantly seeking out